Hey guys, we're Jordan and Josh Kelly from Working Aussies Homestead, and today we are going to talk about the top 5 things that we would change if we could go back to the beginning of our adventures with KuneKunes on our homestead. And Crispy's gonna mess with the camera.
Come here.
So if you guys don't know, we added 2 KuneKunes to our homestead back in February. And then in June, we were surprised with a litter of 6 piglets from one of our pigs. We did keep 3 of the boys, and we did castrate them ourselves. So we currently have 5 KuneKunes on our 1.24 acre homestead.
Alright, so number one. First thing we would have changed is better fencing. We probably would have done more research on the fencing that we were going to use. But since we were kind of rushed and kind of in a frenzy to kind of get a fence, we ended up going with the Premier One pig fence. It doesn't work bad. It's just not up to the standards of what we would kind of want. And it's definitely a temporary fence. Alright, so we ended up going with a Premier One pig fence. It was their one that you move every single day, and I would probably give it a 6 out of 10.
Yeah, so our issues with the fence is it doesn't stay nice and tight. The fence kind of will wobble to the side either way. And then it's not the easiest to pick up and do by yourself. It's definitely a fence that it has to be both of us setting it up, which does not make it as easy for us since we both still work full time. And sometimes it just means only one of us is home. So doing more research on a fence that would have been better for us in our situation, I think, is the first thing that we would have changed. Now, the second thing that we would have changed would be our watering system and doing more research on our different options. So again, if you don't know, when we added our first 2 pigs, we met them, and then the next day we went and picked them up after we decided we were going to get pigs. So it was very quick, and we did pick something that was just easy and easily accessible. However, we've dealt with a lot of different issues because of that. So KuneKunes being non-rooting pigs and being pigs in general, pigs cannot sweat. So in the heat of summer, one of the big things that we needed to do was provide them with some sort of pool or water source that they would be able to lay in during the heat of the summer here in North Carolina, where this summer it did reach 116 degrees several days.
So, that being stated, we were recommended getting kiddie pools to help them out and stay cool. And what we ended up finding was they were drinking the dirty water. After about like a week or 2, maybe a month if we were really lucky, they were starting to break down, and then we would get a hole in it, and then they wouldn't hold any more water, or they would break and they'd have a slow leak or something like that. And it just became a thing where we started buying pools, what seemed like maybe every month.
We've gone through about 5 kiddie pools for our pigs, and just simply because they will literally just sit on the edge of the pool, the water will go out, and they're just sitting there, not a care in the world. But it did, break down all of the pools a lot quicker than what we originally anticipated.
We have plans to build a pig waterer with the pig nipples and the big 55-gallon drum. We just haven't gotten the chance to either order the parts or put it together. So that's definitely something that we're going to be doing next year. The third thing that we would have done differently, which I would say we're probably almost at the point where we feel a little more comfortable with it, is we would have done better shelters. When we started, we had a shelter that Justin Rhodes had put up on his YouTube channel. It works fine, but for me, as far as for Jordan, I think it's a bit heavy, and it's hard for her to move it around. So if I'm not here and she has to move the pigs, which for the most part, especially the girls, are pretty easy to move, she needs to be able to move their shelter, and that's not necessarily the best thing for her to do. The second shelter we built is actually behind us, and this was the shelter that we built for Louise to have her piglets, and it's actually a lot lighter than the one that Justin built, but the problem is it's that much bigger and takes about 2 people to move. So we're almost there. I think what we need to do next year is build one more shelter that is a little bit lighter and easier for one person to move, especially for Miss Jordan here, so she can move it a little bit easier than having to have me help her all the time.
And if you guys are new and you're wondering why I need some special accommodations with the shelters and fencing, is the whole reason why we started this homestead. And I have multiple sclerosis, so even though I look healthy and young and strong on the outside, I am not. And there are some days where I just can't do it, and sometimes things don't get done because of it, but that's okay. The fourth thing that we would have changed if we were starting over with pigs is definitely research on food. When we first got our girls, we had not done a whole lot of research on the feed. And at the time, we were not able to get the same feed that their breeder was feeding them, simply because they're located a little over an hour away from us. Since then, we have tried a couple different feeds with them, and initially we were doing a custom mix from a local mill. However, with that, we had to purchase 500 pounds at a time. And if you guys know anything about slower heritage breed pigs, is they do not need the same amount of feed that your typical feeder pig needs. So these pigs do not go through pounds and pounds and pounds of feed a day. Instead, they go through maybe a pound a day, maybe 2. So very minimal. So 500 pounds would last us months, which was fine, but we would have done a lot more research on feed sooner to see exactly what the best mix would be. Now, our pigs currently eat a grain twice a day, but we also do feed them scraps. I get veggie scraps from my work, so they about 3 to 4 times a week get veggie scraps along with the supplemental grain, and then we do rotate our pigs on pasture. So that was our biggest reason for getting KuneKunes, is because we wanted a pig that we could rotate along with our chickens and any other animals that we were adding at the time, which we've added a couple more since getting pigs, but that was one of the main reasons why we got this breed. So definitely doing more research on the feed and what would work for us in regards to the sense that we are rotational grazing. Even though we are doing that, the forage that the pigs do have is not as good as it could be, which is why we are sowing different seasonal cover crop to help increase that forage and soil health, to provide better grazing options for all of our animals.
So on the 5th one, it's actually a little bit more complicated than just changing how we would have done it, because we weren't expecting to do it so early. So maybe we get a free pass on this, maybe we don't. But the last one was figuring out how to care better for piglets that we do get on our homestead. We had a litter of piglets last year. It was a little unexpected because when we picked Louise up, we did not know, but the day before we picked her up or picked her out, she had broken into the boar pen by accident, and we had no idea that we were going to be expecting these cute little piglets. But that being stated, we weren't really prepared for them. And when they came, we just got a pretty good mom. Louise was wonderful. We didn't have to supplement anything on the pigs. She did really good taking care of them, and they grew really well. It wasn't until after we put Louise back in with Wanda and had the piglets with them that we really decided that we needed to learn a little bit more, because these little guys were not getting the feed and supplemental grains that they probably needed to get, and they're a little underweight, we'll admit that, but that's why they're separated now, and they're getting healthier and chunkier and chubbier and getting all the extra belly rubs that they want, so that way their moms can't take them. That's something to think about if you're going to bring pigs on and you're going to have piglets, especially with KuneKunes. You need to keep that in mind. That way you can make sure your husbandry skills are good, especially when it comes to piglets, because they can be a little bit more sensitive than older pigs.
And we say that because at a few months old, Crispy here, this black and white piglet we have, he actually started showing dippity pig symptoms, which is something that piglets can get, but typically it only lasts anywhere from 48 to 72 hours. It's where the piglet gets super stressed and suddenly refuses to use their back legs, their back is sensitive, they will stop eating, stop drinking, and so it's super important to get them to a quiet, calm place and keep them hydrated, and typically it passes. So he had this go on, and it was probably almost a week, and I started reaching out, seeing what our options were, and everyone said we needed to take him to a vet. Now for us, taking animals to a veterinarian is not feasible. That's not why we started this homestead, and so we had to have the conversation of what animals go to the vet and which animals do not, because at that point we were saying, is it worth putting several $100s into a piglet that might die anyways, or do we just kind of wait it out and see? So that is where I would have loved to have had more information about how to care for piglets, including the different things that they can go through and different things that can happen. But obviously he made it. It took 3 weeks of him being in our shed where it was dark and quiet. I hand fed him every single day. No antibiotics, just some apple cider vinegar and soupy water, soupy food. And he made a full recovery. But
and
that's
he's now one of our biggest piglets on the homestead.
Yes. I would have loved to have known more nonetheless in how to care for piglets. Even though it wasn't necessarily expected, still something that we both would have gone back and changed. So we hope you have enjoyed hearing our version of what we would change if we went back before we got pigs, and the 5 things that we would focus on changing. If you like this video, please go down and hit that like button. Please comment. We'd love to hear your questions and concerns, and just your comments about if you liked the video or not. Please feel free to share it with all of your friends and family. And if you're not already, go hit that subscribe button. It helps us a lot. And don't forget that notification bell so you know when all of our videos come out.
Thanks, guys, and don't forget, we'll see you tomorrow.